The gameplay that we're going to show on our YouTube version of the show will be from the first couple hours of the game. Watch at your own risk, but again, minor spoilers from the first couple hours of the game. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Starfield Explorers, the podcast where we dive deep into Bethesda Game Studios' most ambitious RPG of all time. I'm your host, Antonio, aka Hypecaster. You can find me and the rest of Team Megadads at megadads.org or Megadads on YouTube. We want to hear from you. Be part of the show, leave a comment or a question under the show posted on YouTube. Again, that's Megadads on YouTube. We are in the podcast section. Find Starfield Explorers wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Stitcher, Apple, we're on Google, we're on your mama's and your grandmama's podcast of choice, your little player. Download your podcast app and find us. Tell somebody about it, won't you? Anybody who's hyped about the game. We want this to be a place where you're just coming together with friends and talking about this game we're all playing and excited about. I'm joined today by my co-pilot and best bud, the illustrious Clay Howard. What's going on, Clay?
Poured a shot of bourbon here. This is for thank you to all of Bethesda for making a fantastic video game.
Salud.
That being said, I love doing this show with you guys, but I'd much rather be playing Starfield than be here right now.
Same.
It's killing him to be here. It's killing him. I'm also joined by the navigator himself, king of the cosmos, guru of galaxies far and wide, Big D, David Jones. What's up, David? How you doing, Big D?
Not much. Just also like to echo that it was physically painful to put down the controller to record this. Physically painful.
We've been going back and forth, and I think one of the crazy takeaways and one of my favorite parts about great games is how addicting they can be. And the hours just fly by. If I didn't have to sleep, no lie, I would just want to keep playing. It's not a game you get bored of. It's just not. You know, I played Baldur's Gate, right? And the tactile nature of the combat and just the way that your brain has to just work about it. I can't play for more than 4 hours tops. And this I just stop when I have to. Mm-hmm. When I just, to eat, sleep, poop, the whole thing. If you're new to the show, welcome and thank you for listening. Every episode, we stay focused on a particular topic of the game and do a deep dive. Long story short, we keep it short and sweet. We're coming to you 3 days post-early access. So we've been playing for 3 days, some more than others, but we've been playing. It's 4 days until the full launch, the standard launch of the game. Quick note about spoilers. You're going to see gameplay in the video version of our podcast on YouTube, and that footage is just from the opening hours of the game. Now, everything, if you saw the directs and the promos and you were watching the gameplay videos of the game, quite honestly, there's not a whole lot new in there. So watch at your own risk, but as someone who hates spoilers, if I knew then what I know now, I'd be like, okay, I can watch this. It's actually surprising how there was not a whole lot of new ground covered at all. You've seen the characters, you've seen the locations, you've seen the gameplay beats that they explain in those directs. So let's get to our Lightspeed segment. And we do that by saying, David, engage the hyperdrive.
It has been engaged with my mind.
Oh, telekinesis.
Yes.
The Lightspeed segment is where we give our audience a chance to get to know us by answering a quick question. Like 1-2 sentences. Clay, does Starfield make a good first impression?
overall, I would say, yeah, for the most part. One of the first things I noticed about this game was how beautiful it looks. This feels like a next-gen game, or a current-gen game, I guess. I don't know. It looked really good, and I wasn't seeing a lot of nasty textures and things. I haven't really seen any pop in. I'm sure it's there. I think I saw some reviews talk about it, but I think it's a good looking game, good sounding game. We could spend an hour just talking about the audio,
and we will on future episodes.
Yeah.
David, does it make a good first impression?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like immediately familiar. I know the first thing I do, and every time I think of a new Bethesda game, is to see if the top button is still jump, because it's only like that in Bethesda games. And I'm glad they've never changed it. Yeah, I'm glad I feel like somewhere some focus group must have told them, it's like, just make it play like Call of Duty. And they're like, nope, we're doing our same wonky control scheme, deal with it. And I love that.
Except for the B button. They changed the B button.
Did they?
That is true.
It's not the menu anymore.
Yeah, that does throw me off.
Because B used to be the Pip-Boy. It used to be Skyrim. It would open up the map or your radial menu. It's all now. It's B is just crouch. B was never crouch, right? It was always.
Oh yeah, because normally crouch is you punch in your control stick.
Yep.
That makes sense. Well, I've been randomly crouching now, accidentally.
Yep. It's 100% why my brain wants to do it, and it's weird.
On PC, I play PC and Xbox, and on PC you can do keybinds and edit your controls, so that's interesting. Yeah. I think that the game doesn't make a good first impression early on, but it just depends on what point you're talking about. The first quest has like 5 major segments to it. What we would call like the opening of the game, where the training wheels are on and it sets the stage for what's happening. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the opening. So how the first things you see, how you're set up as a character, what your objective is, the world building, and the first impression that the game makes. And that is our main topic for today, Starfield's introduction. The opening segment. Let's talk about it and talk about where it ranks in other Bethesda games, and actually other games if you want to. So I think it's very important to make a good first impression, right? It kind of sets the stage. The world building by far is one of the most important things in games like this, and I think that Bethesda has done an amazing job in its other games. And that's why I thought, in planning the episodes of what we would talk about post-release, I'm like, we got to talk about the intro, because it's a thing in these games. You know, other games they get you in, you're playing the game, the tutorial's over in 5 minutes, right? And they still have set the stage. They've built the world. They've kind of taught you the rules of the game, you know, what you're fighting, who are you, what are you doing. It's such a huge part of Bethesda games, and I wasn't happy with the first bit. So we'll set the stage. No, not a big spoiler if you've seen the introduction. Has been presented already to you in the directs. So you actually begin as a miner, and then there is an accident that lets you create your characters. So you're subject to some type of reset where it says, hey, do you remember who you are? And this has been one of the avenues that they've used in many games, right? It's like, hey, do you remember who you are? And then you do the character creator. After that, you are introduced very quickly to how you're going to get off the planet and shift from being a miner to being part of Constellation, this group of explorers. And then you get to actually get off planet, experience space, and then meet Constellation, whose hub is on another planet in the city of New Atlantis. All of this was explained already. Again, minor spoilers at best. And that's how it goes. Again, it's about 5 little key points. You have who you are, the combat, the space things, or whatever. And Clay, let's go to you. What did you think about? It amounts to the first mission, which I believe is called something like First Steps or something like that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So overall, it was fine. I did think about it halfway through, going, I don't know how much I would enjoy playing this over and over. I've done the Skyrim starting mission so many times, and have it by heart. Like I kept thinking, like, is this going to be a fun one to do over and over, or is it going to be one that is like kind of annoying? So, but I guess the one thing that I had a hard time with, and I noticed a guy on Reddit point out the same thing, the way the storyline develops in it felt very unrealistic, I guess is what I'll say. And so that was my biggest gripe with the beginning, was just, this doesn't feel like how this would play out. And usually they're very good at obviously your character has to have some kind of important thing to get them going. So in this, touch fact makes you important. But then all of a sudden, I forget the gentleman's name who shows up to get back from you.
Barrett? Gavin?
Barrett sounds right.
Barrett sounds right.
He shows up.
Something like
Garrett?
that.
Yeah. This guy shows up and he goes, "Hey, you're special, okay? What, you need to come with me. We're gonna go to this place." Okay, that's all right. I follow that. But then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, I can't just screw over your friends who are working in the mines. I'll stay here. You take my ship and my robot and just pilot this thing on out of here. Go ahead, take off." And so it's like, from there on out, it just feels a little rushed and a little unrealistic, in my opinion. So it's like, all right, this dude just gave me a ship. Granted, it's not technically his, it's like on loan, but he just gives it to me, and now I'm flying around, and there's a robot, and then the robot's like, "Oh, these people are bad guys, and the only way that they're gonna like stop bothering us is if we go kill their boss." And so the next thing you know, before, you're not even going back to where the guy came from, you're going to kill bad guys, and it's just like, okay, like it just kind of didn't feel like I was I was a little disillusioned. And so I think a lot of that was just kind of being forced. And I know when I mentioned it to you, David, you brought up, like, I wonder if they had a longer version and then this was them like trying to speed that up after the focus groups were like annoyed or something.
Because I think all of us thought it was too fast, but there's so many reviewers who think it's still too long. So, right. Which makes me think, if this was any longer, people probably complained internally that we're testing it. But yeah, it does feel like they tried to just like, we need to figure out how you get a ship as quickly as possible, teach you how to fight as quick as possible, and then get you on your way. It does kind of feel like that, but
yeah. The main takeaway we agree on is the pacing and the effort and the method. It's just, it doesn't feel right. It gets better once you get into the 5th and 6th segment. Like, the game really starts to shine. But in this transition to how you go from being a miner to going to where you need to go, and all of a sudden you're some regular duster, miner, whatever, rock breaker, like grunt person. Oh, not only that, they casually mention after you make your character. I played through this twice for gameplay recording purposes and all that, and it is not fun. It is not entertaining to go through twice. Okay. And they casually mention, and contextually based on the background for your character you choose, when you wake up, they say, "Oh wow, I thought that I didn't realize you were XYZ. I thought you became a miner because of this." And it changes it depending on what you select. And that's kind of one of the reasons why they have you even select a background, is that's that like avenue to say you were something before this. There is a way that you can select no background, and it's like, hey, like, was your record scrubbed by a mysterious organization? Do you just not remember, or whatever? Like, you have no background. And I'm sure it fills in the blank with another, hey, you're here and I don't have a record for you. Why? Never mind that. Let's just go. Like, it's very weird. The writing was not strong. I liked I think Lynn is the head of the miners, one of the main characters, and she is well voice acted. The character models look really good compared to other Bethesda games. So the sense of these are characters who are fully realized actually surprisingly was there, but they weren't given good things to say. The dialogue drastically improves later, but it was rushed. You're right. Something changed.
Yeah, I feel like it's once you get to the second mission, it gets much better. I feel like the second mission is the actual first mission. Like immediately, as soon as that first one's done, complete, you start the second one with Morgan, then the pacing's way better.
It was an afterthought, and that's sad because just talking a little bit about other intros for Bethesda games, one of the things that was interesting is as you're leaving the planet, Lynn, you're saying you have the option to say thanks for everything, Lynn, and she's like trying to hold back like some emotion, saying just get going before I say something I regret. Like they make it like you weren't interacting with her for 2 minutes before leaving, right? And it's like, why is it a big deal that I was here? Why is it a big deal that I'm leaving? Why is someone staying in my place? Like it makes zero sense. And when things make zero sense, that's not good world building. And if you recall in Fallout, there were a masterful intro was Fallout 3 where you're born as a child, you're crawling around, and then you're going through a baby book and selecting your stats, and you are literally skipping in time to your teenage years, to your thing. In just a matter of an hour, you live your life in a vault, and it sets the world beautifully. You introduce your parent who's going to be your pull through to the main quest. The world is built out wonderfully. It's odd. It sets a isolation tone, but also like an odd and wacky tone, and you start to build who you are, and it's incredible. I think that you could have been a miner for a number of years and learn gameplay mechanics over like, oh, here's like day one of we got here, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, I can't believe we did this over a month. And then they could teach you gameplay like in little vignettes and skip time. Then what if we cared about Lynn and in the end, same amount of time, but just do like real quick snippets. It's just a way they've done it before. The first action was, like Clay said, all of a sudden we have to go kill pirates because they came after us once, which means we have to take the fight to them. And when we take the fight to them, pirates are going to be in a lab that's not their home base. So it's like, but we know that they're there. Like it seems like they say we have to go kill a pirate leader, and hey, we're not going to somewhere where they're at usually. We're going to a random lab, which sets some other world building. And it, again, makes zero sense if you stop and think about it. In Skyrim, the action set piece is classic. Wake up on a cart. Hey, like, what's your name again? And then, you're with a main character in a perilous situation and you're about to be executed. Even me describing it in one sentence, which summarizes the whole situation, is so compelling. And that's not what we got here. Massive dragon attack, escape scene / come out, or in Oblivion, assassination attempt on someone who's really important, and then you get the MacGuffin and you're on your way and you come out of the sewers, and I'll always remember coming out of the sewers. None of that's here. Like, I don't think that anything was particularly impressive until I got in the ship and I realized that I like the ship stuff and space travel way more than I thought I was going to. What do you think, David? How does this compare What are your thoughts?
I'll agree with most of what you said, but I don't think it was like, to me, it didn't feel like, I don't know. I haven't replayed it like you, but to me, it didn't feel like I'm gonna have a problem with doing this again. And you mentioned the Oblivion one, which I think was fun the first time, but I've never enjoyed replaying the Oblivion openings.
Same.
I just feel like I'm stuck in that sewer for so long. I just want to get out. It's
I'll give you that,
annoying. Yeah. Whereas this one, it's like, yeah, it's not nearly as memorable, but at least it's going to be over sooner. I don't know if anything's going to top the Skyrim. The Skyrim one is just completely galaxy. Or Fallout 3. I think for me, Fallout 3, I love that being in the vault segment, even though it might be a bit too long, but I still just love what it is. And it doesn't seem to drag like Oblivion does. And Skyrim is just absolutely classic. So those two, I think, are top tier. Story-wise, this one is stupid, but I think I'd probably take it over Oblivion's. Morrowind, it's pretty short, really memorable, but then you're just thrown out with like zero direction with like a tiny dagger and no health. Nice. Which is horribly hard for new players. And this is I feel like it's trying to find a balance between being short and explaining everything. It doesn't necessarily land that, but like my kind of reaction was kind of like, this is dumb, but it's over quickly and it's kind of fine. I don't know. I don't disagree with you, but wasn't really like this huge deal to me. That it was kind of lame. It was just like, oh, okay. I got past it. It's done with. The rest of the game so far has been great.
Do you remember in Skyrim where they're executing people in front of you one by one, and the guy's like, he's like,
so cool.
He's like, let's get this over with. I don't have all day. And then they lop his head off, and then everybody has a chance to escape like 30 seconds later. I was laughing out loud and just like reminiscing on that yesterday as I was thinking about this. Clay, what are your thoughts? Anything else you want to say about the intro of the game? The more I think about it, I like it less and less, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it's not the most memorable. I do think that the voice acting saves it.
Yes.
The two characters you're with at least make it enjoyable to listen to them. Walking around mining at the beginning, I get that that's what you're doing and stuff, and there's more of that in the game, but just, I don't know, kind of odd, I think. Just let's start with the mining thing, and then you won't really do as much of that for the next 20 hours. I'm sure at some point it'll come back where you're going to need that stuff for like resources and all that, and you'll be doing more of that, but I haven't been doing that at all. So yeah, so I can see where you're coming from, Tony, and but I wasn't bored. I think I was just excited to play the game, so I was just happy to be there. So I didn't really associate bad things. I felt like it was a decent length, at least the mining part. Once you got into the fighting and then the guy showing up, and then I felt like after that it was like, okay, like once the action started, it was fine. That being said, how it ranks to the others, obviously Skyrim I think is the best. I actually played the Fallout 3 intro like a week ago for the first time in a long time, and I don't like it as much as you guys. I think it's way too long. I think playing as a baby is stupid. The story, like being in the vault and seeing some of like what it's like doing the vault is interesting to me from like a lore aspect, but the amount of times it like fades to black and it's like 10 years later and it's like, oh my gosh, like hurry up, and you can't skip it, you got to do it. There was some unique things with how they chose, your profession and all that stuff. Like that was all fine, but it felt too slow. I think that Fallout 4 has a really solid intro, believe it or not. It's a little slow at the very beginning when you have to like go mess with the baby, and then you have to come back and talk to the robot, and so there's a little bit of that. But then the vault salesman comes to the door and talks to you, and then when he leaves, literally you get to experience what it's like to be in the beginning moments of a nuclear holocaust, basically. And you, like, the bomb hits and you go running out the door and you speed off to the vault. I thought that was awesome. I think it's the right length of time, and it creates this kind of fast-paced like intensity that you're like, oh crap, I gotta get out of here. I don't know. I always think that one's good. I never mind replaying that one, and I've replayed that one a lot of times.
It's pretty short. I honestly, the reason I didn't include it was because I just forgot about it.
Yeah,
because it gets you into it so quickly that it's probably, to me, I think it's the least memorable just because of how short it is. Not that nuclear explosion part, that is legitimately cool, but it just doesn't feel like to have that weight of being the intro as the other ones do. It's kind of just a cool thing that happens. You're out in there's a robot, there's the dog, go play. For better or worse.
The more I think about it, and thank you for reminding me, I mean, Fallout 4 was great because Fallout's an interesting franchise in that the Great War and, nuclear devastation, they start every game from Fallout 1 to Tactics, all these things. It was all about the aftermath, and then, people living underground and then coming out, and there was always a different take on it, but you didn't ever get to experience the onset of the destruction, and they did a really good job of fleeing the nuclear explosion. And then they transitioned to the vault, and just being in the vault for a while and then coming out, and you're a person out of time, in that game, frozen or unanimated, whatever the hell they call it, and then you come back, and then it gives you a reason to learn about the world. This game is set up in an odd way where it's like they decided you had to be a miner, yet we were going to give you a way to have a background. We're not going to explain why you're a miner right now, and we may not ever do that. And it's an odd thing. Like, do you have a place in the world? Like, honestly, when the game began, I thought we were going to get some type of look into the Colony War, which was the setup of, they keep talking about one major event that kind of shaped the world, and I guess it's all going to be told in there's a museum, there's different things like different audio pads, people you talk to, but I think the action and the scale of that, where we may not get a cutscene or anything like that, that really dives into it. And I think that even just hinting at that in the beginning may have been more exciting, into saying, space. Like in War Never Changes, like that whole little 30-second clip they have at the beginning of the Fallout series, even going that way, where you start the whole game, same thing, you're a miner, blah, 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 but then that whole War Never Changes, setting the thing that humanity has been traveling the stars for this many years, here's what happened. I don't know. I think there's a lot of different ways they could have went with it.
There's a side quest that explains so much of that stuff.
So it's eventually. Can you miss this side quest and have the world building be 50 hours in? Because I didn't go and look at it.
Yes.
I think so.
Oh, that's spicy meatball. The game gets better at the very end of the mission. It's still the same mission because I paid attention to this. You start to talk to the members of Constellation on I don't know what the planet's called, but it's the city of New Atlantis. The game makes an excellent final first part of the impression. Things are well written, the dialogue's amazing, the characters, from the moment the guy gives you the ship, you're like, these guys, everything, the people look really good. The writing is and they explain succinctly why you're doing what you're doing. The characters are humanized, and you believe that why you're being introduced into this organization, why they're letting you in. There's a reason for everything that's happening, instead of it being like, why is this happening? And I think that it ends up being good. The gameplay aspects, which we'll break down in details, bit by bit, from the combat to the space travel to all the mechanics. I think it's all introduced and it hits all good. There's no part of it I didn't like.
Hey, Tony, since this happens in the beginning mission, can we talk about our character builds?
On one of our future episodes, I want to dive deep into the character creator, talk about what builds we end up going with, but I'm super invested in talking about the background choices. I agonized, I pained over them, the traits, what I think of those. Spoiler alert, I didn't like the traits. I didn't think they were as compelling as some other Bethesda games or even other games. There's something weird going on here with the skills and the tiers and the unlocks. There's something's off, but we'll talk about it. We'll dive deep, just like we do every episode. We'll dive deep into the character creator on one of our future episodes. This is it. We're in it, guys. We're gonna go play Starfield right now, except for Clay, because he's got to go to bed. He's been playing nonstop. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Starfield Explorers. We are hyped. Be hyped with us. Leave a comment on the podcast. Our video version is on YouTube at Megadads on YouTube. Starfield Explorers. Tell a friend. We'll see you next time as we continue to travel through the stars.